Yeah, there we go. How's it going, guys? Let me know how the audio sounds. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if the stream is at good quality and everything looks good. I am super excited today to talk about three body problems and more. Okay, so is it spoiler free? So right in the back, I'm gonna say I am going to try not to spoil any of the big major events in the future of the series. But I will talk about some things. I will mention some things, and I will talk about how certain events in the books relate to what we saw in the show. And this is a deep dive. This is a deep dive because I've seen a lot of things floating around recently, like a lot of like weird opinions about certain things. And I just wanted to clarify some things and to give some of my thoughts. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. You don't have to like a show. Obviously, everyone's going to have a different opinion. Of course, some people are going to like the books more. I like the books more, obviously. I understand that the television adaptation is just that. It's an adaptation, and the books are the books, and the Tencent show is the Tencent show. I think some people thought that I was like kind of hating on the Tencent show in my review of this one, but I wasn't hating. I was pointing out that they too took liberties for the sake of adaptation, just like this one did. And this one was adapted specifically for a Western audience. So they took liberties that, a Western audience would appreciate more. And I think the show is very good. I think it's a good sci-fi show. Of course, it's not a carbon copy of the book. I never expected it to be. I don't know anyone who did expect it to be. But I think that what we got is good, is ultimately good. And so today we are really going to break it down. We're really going to break it down. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of the show. We're going to talk about the similar scenes in the book and how it all relates. I'm going to start first with breaking down all the characters, and then we're going to go episode by episode. As I said, I'm not going to spoil the major events later in the books, but I will talk about some of the more minor things, but I won't spoil the big stuff. And I will talk about how events in the show relate to the book. All right, so I've got slides for you guys today. So we're going to start off just going through the characters real quick, as I said, and then we're going to get into episode by episode, right? Okay, so first character that we're going to talk about is Mike Evans. So Mike Evans is introduced in the first episode. You don't really know a lot about him. We do see that he is Evans Energy. We know from the book that Mike Evans inherited his father's oil company. So in the show, I would say Mike Evans is relatively accurate. There are a few differences. The big difference being like he had the love affair with Ya Wenji. So we're introduced to Mike Evans. All right, and let's move on to the next character. We'll get into more detail about some of it later, but let's introduce everybody first. And then next up, we've got Ya Wenji. So Ya Wenji is, of course, one of the most important characters in the entire book series. Because of her, everything happens. Everything is happening because of Ya Wenji's actions. And I would say she's portrayed relatively accurate in the show with a few minor changes. All right. So the next character we're going to talk about a little bit is Will. So I always want to call Will Tianming because that is essentially who he is. Anyone that has read the entire book series can see clear as day that Will is clearly the character Tianming. He's pretty dang close. And he and Jack are besties. And we'll talk about Jack in just a little bit. So Will is very, very obviously Tianming, and we'll talk more about him as we go episode by episode and break things down. All right. So next character, we've got, where is he? We've got Saul. So Saul, I didn't know it at first. I didn't realize this at first until like the last two episodes that this is what it was going to be. Saul is 100% Luo Ji. We see him in the show be elected as wall facer. There are some very similar scenes that we will go over that are very close to the book. People that are saying that it's unrecognizable and that none of it is similar have completely lost it. And I've pulled direct quotes, and we've got plenty of slides to show for you guys because there are certain scenes that are very close and absolutely have the essence of what is going on in the book. And Saul, fills the role of Luo Ji. All right. But there is a silly thing that I did see um, involving Saul as Luo Ji, right? So I've seen him be criticized weirdly for smoking weed. Like, guys, book readers, are we forgetting that the character he is based off of, Luo Ji, is an alcoholic for a significant portion of the book he's in? And the last time I checked, alcoholism was more dangerous than smoking weed, right? So here's an excerpt from The Dark Forest about from Luo Ji. It says he was particularly interested in the wine cellar. He knew that the dust-covered bottles lying horizontally on the racks held nothing but the best. He drank in the living room. He drank in the library, and sometimes he drank on the boat, but never too much, just enough to keep him in that perfect half drunk, half sober state. And then he would take out the long steam pipe left out from the previous owner and puff away. Even when it rained and the living room grew chilly, Luo Ji never had the fireplace lit. He knew it wasn't yet time. Right? So why are we complaining about a character in a show smoking and drinking when the character in the book smokes and drinks? I'm just going to let that sit in because I thought that was really weird that people were complaining about that when it's in the book. All right. And also I've seen people say that he's kind of like he's a nobody and that he doesn't have any credentials and he's not intelligent. And I would say that Saul is definitely in the show presented as just as intelligent as Luo Ji, right? We see his skills of deduction numerous times. Like they go out of our way to show us that he has credentials. So he's just as intelligent as Luo Ji, very clearly. All right. And so the next character we're going to get into, go over real quick, is Shang Jin or Jin Chang. So she's obviously Shang Xin from the book, with a little bit of Wang and a little bit of AA mixed in as well. I really enjoyed the portrayal of this character. We'll talk a lot more about her later. We'll talk a lot more about Shang Jin later because I really, really liked the portrayal of this character. All right, the next character we're going to go over real quick is Jack, right? So Jack is partially Wang, but what a lot of people aren't realizing is that Jack is also the character Hook Win from the books. Will and Jack are best friends from college in the show, and Hook Win is the closest thing that Tian Ming had to a best friend in college. And they were both a part of a friend group in college, which involved Chang Xin, aka Chang Jin, in the book. So, like, it's a direct correlation to what's happening in the book. And this is also why Jack is a millionaire in the show, because He Win is a millionaire because he owns a drink company. Jack in the show owns a chip and drink company. Yeah, in the book, it's like a grass drink company called like Green Tempest or something like that. But he's very rich. And the character is more similar than people are even complaining. I don't even think people noticed that it was that character. And the character is also is way more similar than people are saying. The people that did notice, I don't know how many people noticed or not. I've seen a lot of people complaining about like how much the character Jack curses. And I just wanted to point out that the character he's based off of curses as well. And I have a quote. So Hu Win in the book says about his drink company, the prospects are fantastic though. Lots of investors are interested, and I'm really bad at Chinese names. So Hu Yun Juice wants to buy my company. F them. So he curses in the book just like he does in the show. And by the way, for the other people that are like going crazy about the curse words in the show, I went and looked to make sure. And the F word is used 21 times in the books. The S word is used 25 times in the books. The word damn is used 11 times in the books. So if you don't like the Netflix series because of cursing, that's totally fine. But by that logic, you shouldn't like the books either because it's a part of the books as well. All right. So I just had to go over that. And I'm just pointing out that there was a lot more similarities than people are giving credit for. And we're going to go over We have a lot more. We've got a lot to go. We're going to be streaming for a while. And by the way, guys, I will be accepting super chats, but I'm going to reserve a time later to look at the super chats. So if it seems like I'm not looking at the chat as much, I will be getting into super chats and answering some questions later. But we'll do that. We'll do that later. So I'll have all your super chats saved, and we'll get to them later when we get to a stopping point. Okay, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, curses in the book. So let's get to the next character that I'm going to talk about, and that is Augustina. Now, I know a lot of people haven't liked Augustina that much in the show. Augustina is taking part of the role of Wang, and in my opinion, she's also a little bit of AA, and in my opinion, she's also a little bit of Shang Xin. And I think that the reason certain people are finding her a little bit annoying is the same reason that you find Shang Xin a little bit annoying in the book, right? I also found Agi a little bit annoying in the show, but that's the character. She's got a little bit of Shang Xin in her, and anyone that's read the book can totally see it. So that's why I think she's a little bit annoying. Like when she's going like kind of head to head with Thomas Wade, and she's like, but we have to have someone in the show that has that voice, that has the opposite voice, that that's talking about like the morality of it all. We have to have someone that's the opposite, and I think she absolutely filled the role, even though she's not my favorite character in the show. That's the thing. There's no main character in this. It's an ensemble, and really it's about humanity as a whole. But we'll get into more of her later, because like I said, after we break down all the characters, we're going to go episode by episode and get into a lot of nitty-gritty details. All right, and let's talk about another character, possibly my favorite adapted character from the show. And let me just pull this up real quick. Thomas Wade, I thought was so awesome in this. And if you've only read the first book, then you obviously have no idea who Thomas Wade is. In the show, he is a mysterious leader of a mysterious government agency. And this is also in the book. It's called the PDC. This agency is from the books, like I said, and like all the governments of the world kind of cooperate. So yeah, that's in the books as well. So Thomas Wade is the guy that gets things done at any means necessary. Like the ends justify the means for Thomas Wade. And like I don't want to spoil anything, but Thomas Wade is so important, and you might hate him. He might be a douche. He might be a jerk. But man, he's fighting for mankind, and I really enjoyed the portrayal. I love Davos from Game of Thrones. So great portrayal of Thomas Wade. I really, really enjoyed him. So yeah. So next character we're going to talk about is the one and only. Let me see. Where's my slide? The one and only Clarence Shu, Da Shi from the books, right? So Da Shi, I think, is pretty close to his book counterpart. He definitely smokes as much as his book counterpart. And again, guys, I've seen so many comments of people like, why is everyone smoking? First of all, it's like set in England, and I feel like people smoke a lot in England. But there's a lot of smoking in the books. Are we forgetting how much smoking is in the books, guys, to be complaining about people smoking in the show? In case we're forgetting, this is another one of those things where, just to double check, I went back and double checked. And cigarettes and smoking, characters smoking 21 times in the first book, 47 times in the second book, and 5 times in the third book. The characters smoke. They're smoking in the books. That's not something that you can complain about and blame like Westernization or like American. It's not a thing. Yeah, this Da Shi smokes a bunch in the books. So I really like this portrayal. Benedict Wong, I think his name is. Great job. Very excited for him in the next seasons, in the seasons to come. Okay. Who will be the next character to discuss? So we got Vera, who is, of course, taking the place of Yang Dang from the books. So Yang Dang is the daughter of Yawenji in the books, but she's not the daughter of Mike Evans in the book. And that's the main difference between these two. They both are scientists. They both commit suicide. It both like starts a whole chain of events. So yeah, essentially very close. We don't see much of Yang Dang in the books, just like we don't see much of Vera in the show. So pretty close to the book counterpart. There are some minor differences, but I feel like all the same beats are basically hit with the character. All right, and then next character. I got excited when I kind of like realized this is a character that a lot of people have not recognized as anyone from the book, but I do think this is a character from the book, right? So Tatiana, I think is how her name is pronounced. In the show, she's like this ETO soldier. I'm pretty sure that she is taking the place of Shen Yifei from the books. And also, later, she's going to be one of the wall breakers, of course. So I think she's part Shen Yifei, part wall breaker. So that's who she is. In case you were like, oh, who is this random girl? She's clearly that character. I mean, she has the same function as that character, where she's like doing Wenji's bidding. She's got the same function, and it's very obvious by the end of the show when she receives the headset that she's going to become a wall breaker. And if you've read the books, you know what that is. We don't gotta elaborate too much about it. So that is her. And then last but not least, the last character to mention, let's see if we can pull this person up. There we go. The last character to mention is so fun. This is not a random thing. This is not a random thing. I get the sense that a lot of people are screaming into the void without having read further than the first book. Because So Fun is very much in the books. She looks very similar to this. She's got the katana swords. She's Japanese. She's a character in the books. She's a character in the books. She's not in the video game, but she is later in the books, and she is the voice of So Fun. She speaks for the Trisolaran supercomputer. So that's So Fun. So now we've gone over all the characters. Those are the characters in the show. Basically, all of them are adapted in some way from characters from the books, if not being direct adaptations of characters from the books. All right, so those are the characters. Now we're going to get into episode by episode, breaking it down. All right, so beginning of episode 1, right? We have Vera committing suicide, right? This correlates with Yang Dong committing suicide in the books, right? All right, so and we see they have the funeral, and they all get together and they hang out at a bar, right? After the funeral. Let me pull that out. They all go together, hang out at a bar after the funeral. So from the books, we know that the character Tianming, Shengxian, and He Wen, essentially Will, Jin, and Jack, as I said before, were all a part of a friend group in college in the books, right? And Tianming, like his counterpart Will in the show, admired Shengxian from afar, from a distance. And I do have a quote that totally correlates, right? So it says, this is from Death's End. So this is, I think, He Wen speaking. He says, do you remember the outing back when we were first years? That first time we all went out as a group. Of course, Tianming remembered. That was the first time Shengxian had ever sat next to him, had ever spoken to him. If she hadn't taken the initiative, he doubted if he ever would have gotten the courage to speak to her for the rest of their 4 years in college. So this relationship between Will and Jin Cheng is very, very, very close. There's some subtle differences, but it's close to what is presented in the books, right? He was kind of admiring her from afar. They knew each other in college. They were a part of the same friend group. They went out sometimes. To act like these aren't threads from the book are kind of ridiculous. And I think the show made a very smart decision in expanding on this college friend group and connecting the other characters in the show to it. All right. So I think that was a smart decision. Okay, now let's move on to another part of this first episode that I definitely noticed as a difference from the books, right? And this is one thing that I hope they're going to get into more, because this is a difference, and this is something that I would have liked to have seen in the show, right? So Augie's countdown in the show is a lot shorter than Wang's countdown in the book. In the book, Wang's countdown is counting down to Thanksgiving for a very specific reason. And that reason is because of the turkey hypothesis. And I'm really hoping they get into this maybe in season 2. There's still time to get into this, because when we get to the more crazy esoteric concepts. So I'm going to explain the turkey hypothesis and how the book talks about it. So you have the turkey hypothesis and you have the shooter hypothesis. And this is my version of it, right? Imagine a flat two-dimensional sheet above you. And this flat two-dimensional sheet contains an entire two-dimensional universe with two-dimensional life forms living on it. And there's a shooter below the sheet, one of you or somebody, and you shoot every couple of inches along this sheet. Every couple of inches you shoot. And so the life forms on this flat sheet observe that every couple of inches, there is a hole in their universe. And the scientists of this flat universe interpret this as a law, a fundamental law of their universe. There is a hole in the universe every couple of inches, every time. They have mistaken the whim of the shooter for a fundamental law of the universe. All right? That's the shooter hypothesis. And then we have the turkey hypothesis. So the turkey hypothesis is you have all these turkeys and they get fed every day at like noon, right? The farmer comes and feeds the turkeys every day at noon. And then you have a turkey scientist. One of the turkeys is a scientist. And he observes this phenomena of the farmer coming back every noon and feeding them. And he says, a law of the universe is we get fed every day at noon. It is a law of the universe. And then Thanksgiving comes and noon hits. The scientist says, oh, everybody, it's time to get fed. And instead, the farmer slaughters them all. That is the turkey hypothesis. So I really, really hope they go into that in the show, because I definitely got chills in the book when I read that part. And it's so cool. And I hope they get into that. So I was a little bit disappointed. That's why I said I like the show a lot. This is not a show that I like. I don't like love. I'm not head over heels for the show, but I love it. And I recognize it as a great starting point. And this is a great jumping off point to do a really great adaptation of the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. So yeah, I would have liked to hear the turkey hypothesis, but it was cool anyway. I'm glad they did the countdown. Okay. So moving on from that, we also get the scene from the books where the universe flickers. Now, there definitely are some differences between the way this happens in the show versus the way it happens in the book. But essentially, it fulfills the same purpose. And it's a really cool, dramatic scene in the show. And I got really happy. I got really excited with the way they did it. And also the music in the show is absolutely phenomenal. Like the way the music works with like the shots and the scenes is so epic. Great sound design. So yeah, this is a version of a scene that's from the book, except the book version is a little bit more different. It's a little bit more complex in the book, but this is a version of a scene in the books. Okay, so moving on. One of the other things that is covered in the first 2 episodes is Yawenji's backstory, right? So they definitely streamlined Yawenji's backstory, and yet they do keep it pretty close. It is relatively close. And there are certain aspects of it that are closer than the Tencent series that everyone like upholds. And like I said, the Tencent series is a great watch if you're a fan of the books and you want a very, very detailed version adaptation, but it does make changes. Like I said, there are changes in the Tencent version. And one of those changes is that it doesn't really show you anything about the Cultural Revolution. And this version of the show, like the American version of the book, opens with this Cultural Revolution scene, and it's a big part of the story, and it's hugely impactful on the character Yawenji. And this show opens up with it, and it shows you exactly what it's all about. It goes right into it. So yeah, I was unhappy with the Tencent version for cutting that, and I was really happy with the Netflix version for showing it. I don't think it's any more dramatic or gruesome than the way it's portrayed in the book, in my opinion. So yeah, Yawenji's story is relatively close. You also have the character Bai Mulin, who is her lover, who betrays her, and it's similar. The betrayal is similar to the book, but it's also a little bit different. Like in the book, it involves like his handwriting isn't as good as hers, so he has her write a letter for him, And then when the letter gets intercepted, he doesn't take responsibility for it and he lets her take the blame for it. So it is similar but different. And then the same thing happens where she's basically being tortured and denied heat. Um, and she gets sent to the Red Coast base. So it's very similar backstory, but it's definitely streamlined, which I think that works a lot for a television show. Silent Spring is also a big part of the show, and I was happy to see it. Like just like in the book, he gives her the book, and she learns about how humanity is harming the world. This is just like in the book. He gives her this book, and it was a book. If you don't know about Silent Spring is a book that was written in the 1960s by an author named Rachel Carson, and it was basically about the effects of this particular pesticide. And I think I learned about this in high school, I think, and I believe what was happening is that the pesticides were harming the eggs of particular predator animals or species of animals, and the eggs would become very fragile. And you can tell from the title, Silent Spring, because everything's dead. It screws up the ecosystem. So it's about how humans are harming the world and harming the ecosystem and destroying things. And this is of course was considered American propaganda in China, and we see that in the book. So yeah, this was a pesticide from World War II, actually. So the book is about the negative effect that humanity has on the world. So this, along with the events of the Cultural Revolution, and what happens to her father, his murder, all of this helped to shape Yao Wenji's dark view of humanity. And I think that the show has all of the major beats. It has all of the important beats that show why Yao Wenji did what she did. So yeah. So another big part of the show that we see in episode 1, and I'll just pull this up really quickly. Let's see. Something else that we see in episode 1. Hold on, let me grab my slide. We see Yao Wenji give Chang Jin the headset, right? So just like in the book, Jin is being recruited by ETO, just like Wang is being recruited by ETO. But there's some differences, and I do have a slide here because ETO is different. ETO is a lot more complex in the book. In fact, in the show never says ETO. I never heard ETO in the show. ETO is Earth Trisolaris Organization. It was founded by Mike Evans and Yao Wenji, right? And ETO actually has several different factions in the book. So in the books, you've got like the survivors, and those are the people that like really they're like afraid of the Trisolarans. They don't think humanity has a chance of winning, and they just want to be on the side that's winning, or so they think. And then you have the Adventists, who those are the ones that really believe in the Lord and like think it's a religion. It's like a cult with the Adventist. And then you have, it says the receptionist on the slide. That's a typo. But the redemptionist, you have the redemptionist. And the redemptionists essentially hate humanity. They essentially just don't like humans. They think that humans suck. They have a reason to hate humanity. So ETO is a lot more complex in the books. But they are constantly present in the show nonetheless. But definitely a lot. There's a lot more going on with ETO in the books. It's a lot more complex. And I understand why they kind of like cut down a lot of the ETO stuff, because it is a lot for a TV show. I get why they cut it down. But if you want to learn more about like the complexities of ETO, I haven't done a video specifically about ETO, but maybe I should. If you want to learn more about the complexities of ETO, definitely check out the book. So yeah, that's basically the first episode. You have the introduction of like the countdown. You get introduced to all of the characters basically. You see the universe flicker, so you know that there's something crazy going on. You see the beginning. You see Yao Wenji enter the Red Coast base, right? And then we get to episode 2. The first episode is called Countdown. Episode 2 is called Red Coast. So we get to episode 2. All right, and so episode 2 comes around, and we see that Jin is now actually playing the game. We see a version of the game scene that we see in the books. We see like the hydration scene. I also believe in this episode, Jack gets the game like right at the end of the episode, and he also starts playing because Wang, like I said, has been split into multiple different characters. He's multiple different characters, so there's multiple people doing what Wang does in the book. So Jack and Jin are playing the game in this episode, and trying to figure out what's going on. And just like in, I said this in my review, and I'll say this again. I honestly think that the show's version of the game makes more sense to me than what is in the show with the virtual reality headset, because it doesn't the way the game functions doesn't make sense to me with it just being a virtual reality headset. But if it is like this crazy sensory technology, I think it makes a lot more sense, even though in the books it is pretty clear that the Trisolarans don't give any technology to mankind. But I can understand this change, and I can kind of let it slide because I get it. I get why they made the change. It's a reasonable decision to me. So a lot of the game scenes are very reminiscent of what happens in the book. So yeah, I enjoyed a lot of that as well. Also in this episode, we see that Augie does succeed in creating the nano thread fibers, but she was told in the last episode to kind of like to stop the research, just like in the book. Wang is told by Shun Yifei, I believe, to stop his nano research in the books. And just like in the book, Augie is told by Tatiana to stop her research, and that's what will stop the countdown. And then they both do it. So it's pretty similar. Like I said, it hits the same beats. So she stops her research, and the countdown stops. Also in this episode, we see, I don't know if I took a screenshot of it, but we see young Mike Evans for the first time in this episode. And we see young Mike Evans meeting up with Ye Wenji. We see them introduced to each other for the first time in episode 2. So these are two that are going to have a long history and a long lasting impact on like the human world, Ye Wenji and Mike Evans. So we see them meet in this episode. And also in this episode 2, I noticed this, and I don't know how many people are paying attention and noticing these things. At the Red Coast base in episode 2, Ye Wenji mentions the Fermi paradox, right? So she's asking, where is everybody? Where are all of the aliens? If there's supposed to be so many based off of this idea, then where are they? So we're laying the groundwork for the Dark Forest hypothesis. And there are other things in the show that lay the groundwork for the Dark Forest hypothesis. And we'll definitely get into those later in the video. I've got quotes pulled. I've got everything ready to go. So also in this episode, we see that Ye Wenji figures out that we've got to bounce the signal off of the sun, and the sun will magnify the signal, and then it can reach someone out in outer space. So she sends the message to outer space. And then 4 years later, she gets the message back. And it says basically the same thing that it does in the book, where it's just like, do not answer. We will colonize your world. We will conquer you. It's going to be very bad for your planet if you send another message back. It's very similar to what happens in the book. And she basically does exactly what she does in the book. And she returns it and she says, yeah, just come take us. Come take us. Like, we can't take care of ourselves. So the motivation is like basically identical. And a lot of people have been asking about San Ti. San Ti is what the Trisolarans are called in the original Chinese version of the book. So San Ti is the original name. It's not a change that the creators of the show made on purpose. It's the original name of the Trisolarans. So yeah, let's move on to episode 3. Because there are some interesting moments in episode 3 that I want to talk about. So let me get one screenshot that I pulled up, because I thought this was particularly interesting, because this episode is called The Destroyer of Worlds. And this episode opens with this image. It opens with the image of Kali, who is the Hindu goddess of destruction. So I thought it was interesting that this episode is called The Destroyer of Worlds, and this is what it opens with. And then we also see, Raj's family later on. And in this scene with Raj's family, we get Jin holding up, this bread, this flappy bread, and she's talking about the interdimensionality of the universe and how there's multiple dimensions contained within contained within like small spaces. So like later in the show, when we have that explanation from the Santi, the Trisolarans, if you were paying attention, it should make sense to you because of what she says here. She's talking about like how within even like the tiny space of this, within lower dimensions, there could be an entire entire universe within it because of the interdimensionality of the universe. So I like how they're explaining it and they're trying to set these things up because these are things that play a huge role later in the series, a huge role. Oh, everyone's saying that's Shiva, not Callie. Oh, that's my mistake then. That's my mistake then. If that's Shiva, not Callie, then that's my mistake. That's my mistake. Okay. Okie dokie. Okay, so moving on. So okay, so I appreciate the discussion of multiple dimensions. I appreciate the discussion of multiple dimensions. Also in this episode, we see that Augie does try to start her countdown back, but like it comes back, and because hers is a lot shorter than Wang's, it's a lot more urgent. So in the book, Wang just kind of like allows his countdown to keep going. Wang just kind of allows his countdown to just keep going. He just says, screw it. But because his is longer, but hers, I think it's more kind of like nerve wracking when you've only got like a few minutes before it gets to zero. It's a lot scarier for the person that way. So I see why she's a lot more afraid to just like turn it on and keep going because it's counting down to zero. And what comes when it counts down to zero? Also in this episode, we get some expansion of like the game. And we start to see something that I'm pretty sure is also in the book, which is like other players in the game. It's like I don't know if it's actually totally clear, but it seems like there are other players in the game in the book. And here it seems like there are also other players that are like kind of competing against Jin and Jack and trying to like beat the levels, which is pretty interesting to me. So we see that here. And in this episode, Jin essentially figures out that the star system is trisolar. The star system is trisolar. And she and Jack realize that the three-body problem is unsolvable. It's unsolvable because it's the three-body problem, which is a famously unsolvable, like concept. And the goal of the game, she realizes, is actually to save the people. To save like that's the metaphor with the little girl. You got to save the people. So in the book, this is a little bit different from what is going on in the book. As I mentioned, ETO is a lot more complex. And there's a part of ETO that actually is trying to solve the three-body problem. And that is an aspect of the game as well. They're trying to see if anybody can figure out the three-body problem. So it's a little bit different from the books, but I understand the streamlining that's happening here because it still lines up. It still basically lines up. We also see in this episode the human computer scene from the book, which was cool to see. I definitely enjoyed seeing that. And also a scene from the books that we see in this episode 3, Destroyer of Worlds, is we see the effects of a trisolar event where like all three suns are aligned. Now, this was a really cool part in the book because that's just the part in the show where they all start floating up to the sky, and it's like really crazy and devastating. They're all like floating up to the sky because it's the gravity of all three suns being applied on everybody and on the world. So that was really cool to see, and I liked the way they did it. I liked the way they did it for sure. And this is also in this episode we also see that ETO is watching through the game. So this is when we get, I think, official confirmation in the show that ETO is like watching everything that's happening in the game. Okay. So also in this episode, a lot happens in this episode, actually. We also see in this episode that Jack and Jin, they meet with Tatiana. They meet with ETO, and we see a version of a scene from the books, from the end of the book, I think, about like not from the end of the book. We see a version of a scene from the book about the Trisolarans that basically explains what's going on here, right? So the Trisolarans have an unstable planet. It goes through chaotic eras because of the trisolar nature of their star system, and their civilization is constantly getting reset. When they received the signal from Earth, they saw that we had a stable planet. We had basically a paradise world, and they were like, "This is a paradise world. We're going to go there, And if we can stop their technology, then we can. Well, it doesn't say that in this scene, but basically that's the gist of it. So we get a version of a scene from a book, and like in the book, Jack storms off. There's a character in the book. It's a lot. There's a few other people there at this like little meeting. It's not just Jack and Jen, and you do have people that are like, "This is ridiculous," and they storm off. And you don't really know what happens to those people. But in this version, Jack storms off, and then he ends up being murdered by ETO later. And it was interesting because So Fun was bending the light in a way that you couldn't see what was happening from outside the window, and also like scrubbing the footage, which I feel like that is in the realm of something that So Fun could potentially do. So Jack dies at the end of this episode. He's killed by ETO. All right, and that is the end of episode 3, Destroyer of Worlds. Episode 5 to me is like the best episode in the whole first season, but we'll get into that in just a second. And like I said in the beginning, I will get to all the super chats later once we get to a stopping point. But for right now, we're just going to keep breaking down all the episodes and talking about all the different like little thingamajigs. So episode 4 is called Our Lord. Members of ETO refer to the Trisolarans as the Lord, right? So this episode opens up, let's see. It opens up with a young Mike Evans and a young Yewinji, and they're kind of like having dinner. She's invited him, and she tells him about Basanti. So we're basically seeing the origins of ETO. This is the beginning of ETO. This is how it all started. Mike Evans had all this money, and he had a distaste for humanity, and he kind of wanted to save the world. Yewinji had this dark secret, something that she knew that no one else did. They came together and they started this organization. So we see that in the beginning of this show. We also see that Wade basically shows the group the video of Jack's death that So Fun has erased, and they're wondering how the footage has been scrubbed. And Wade essentially tells Jin to just join ETO, to go to the meeting and basically join them. Essentially, let me see if I can find the slide. I'll just pull her up. So basically, Wade tells her to go to the meeting. It is a version of what happens in the. It's a version of what happens in the book with Wang, where Wang is going to the meeting, but he's essentially a spy and he's there to just watch what's going on. And then let's see, just like in the book, the ETO meeting is rated. It's a lot more gruesome in the book. It's a lot more gruesome in the show, I will say. I don't remember there being as much, like shooting. I don't think there was like all the shooting. I feel like they mainly just surrender. I could be misremembering that, but I feel like they mainly go like willingly when it all busts, when they all get raided, I mean, basically. So yeah, this is the big reveal in the show, and just like in the book, that Yewinji is the founder of ETO. But obviously, if you've been watching the show up until this point, then you should have seen the seeds of that coming. And like someone said in the comments, I think they definitely added more action to this scene because they wanted something more dramatic to happen. One of the things that we also see in this episode is we see that Thomas Wade has in fact located the location of the oil tanker. He has located the location of Mike Evans's oil tanker, so they know where it is, but he's not going to act at the moment. So we do see that. So ETO is basically gets cornered in this episode, and it's pretty reminiscent of what happens in the books, right? And there's also a scene that is from the Dark Forest that is inserted here, and I thought this was really interesting to see because it's a really crucial part of the Trisolarans and what is going on with them. And that's the whole conversation about lying, right? This scene is taken directly from the book. It is pretty close to what occurs in the book. All right, so I'm just going to pull that out real quick. So yeah, So it takes place in the Dark Forest, though, and I get why they moved it because they're just keeping things in order, right? So I'm just going to read you the excerpt of this scene from the books. We can communicate over significant distances, not just face to face. The words cheating and lying are another two that we have a hard time understanding. What sort of society is it when thought is completely transparent? What sort of culture does it produce? What sort of politics? No scheming, no pretending? What are scheming and pretending? Evans said nothing. Human communication organs are but an evolutionary deficiency, a necessary compensation for the fact that your brains can't emit strong thought waves. This is what the Trisolarans are saying. This is one of your biological weaknesses. Direct display of thought is a superior, more efficient form of communication. See, the Trisolarans and their biology is totally different from the biology of people. When they think, those thoughts are transmitted through light instantly. So they don't have a concept of lying, right? And I'll just continue here. And then he goes, a deficiency, a weakness. No, my lord, you are wrong. This time you are totally wrong. And then the Trisolarans say, is that so? Let me think about that. It's a shame you can't read my thoughts. And then they leave him waiting for like a long time. They leave him waiting for like 20 minutes, like 20 minutes pass. And then new text appears on the screen. And they say, you are correct. Looking back at those documents, I understand them a little better. And then he says, my lord, there's a long road to travel before you arrive at a true understanding of human matters. I'm almost afraid you'll never be able to. And then the Trisolarans say, indeed, they are complicated. All I know is why I didn't understand them before. You are right. And then Mike Evans says, my lord, you need us. The Trisolarans respond, I'm afraid of you. And that's when the conversation stopped. And the Trisolarans never talked to him again. He never received another message from the Trisolarans after that. So you can see how that scene is taken directly from the book. And in the book, it's not the story Little Red Riding Hood. It's like basically Little Red Riding Hood. It's a story about a wolf that's lying, right? It's a version of Little Red Riding Hood. So I see why they changed it to the actual Little Red Riding Hood story for the Western version, because that's a story that Western audiences are going to recognize. So yeah, the scene with Mike Evans, pretty close to the version in the book. Definitely shortened, but it's close. Okay, I will say, I did have a note here. I will say that Thomas Wade, when the shooting started at ETO, when ETO was raided and the shooting started, and it showed the shot of Thomas Wade sitting there, his expression made me think of maybe like in Game of Thrones, what Tywin Lannister might have had on the expression that he might have had when he received the letter of the Red Wedding, right? He's like, this doesn't bring me any joy that this is happening, but I've got to do what I've got to do, right? So I appreciate Thomas Wade is just like, get it done. He doesn't really react emotionally to it. Yeah. And I also want to point out, I don't know if I mentioned this, we see this episode as well, Thomas Wade's satellite, right? So this satellite was a recreation of the satellite, obviously at Red Coast, and it's built on this oil tanker. And this oil tanker also has 1,000 people on it, including families on it. So it's built on this oil tanker, and these are servants of ETO. These are fanatics. So they've got their families here. And people that think that's outlandish, I mean, have you heard of Scientology? I mean, look into Scientology and look up their boats and how people live on boats and how whole families live there, because it's a cult. It is a cult. And that's it. So people saying like, why are there kids on the boat? Because it's a cult, essentially. These are fanatics that are selling out humanity for alien life forms. All right. So at the end of this episode, Wenji is brought before she's brought before the PDC. And I don't know if they ever call it the PDC in the show. I think they kind of almost say it towards the end, but they don't completely say it. But yeah, she's brought towards the PDC, and she's arrested, and they begin the interrogation. All right. Now we're gonna move on to my favorite episode. So, oh God, Judgment Day. This is the best episode of the season. Episode 5, Judgment Day, is absolutely best episode of the whole season. Yeah, best episode of the whole season. So let's get into it. So at the beginning of this episode, we have Will. He inherits millions of dollars from Jack, right? So this is, once again, a direct version of something that happens in the book. Hu Wen, aka Jack, makes a bunch of money off of his drink brand, Green Tempest, and he gives Tianming millions because he's the one that inspired him. So this is their version of Jack dying and leaving his money from his chip and drink company to Will. So that happens in the book. And I do have a quote, right? So this is Tianming. Life belonged to people like that. But people like Tianming could only watch life pass them by. Life, abandoned and left behind. I owe you, Wen said. He handed 3 credit cards and a slip of paper to Tianming, looked around, leaned in, and whispered, "There's 3 million yuan in the account. The password is on the note." "I never applied for a patent or anything like that," Tianming said, "but it's your idea. Without you, there would be no Green Tempest." So this plot line of him being left this money from his friend is pretty close to the book. Pretty close to the book. Okay. Also in this episode, we haven't really talked about this character as much yet. Let's pull him up if I can find him. Because in this particular episode, where is he? Raj. In this particular episode, Raj begins to be recruited by Wade, right? And Raj, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, is the TV show's version of Zongbei High. So yeah, we start to see Raj's character come into play a little bit more. Also in this episode, we see a lot more of the interrogation of Ya Wenji. Dasha is interrogating Ya Wenji, is asking her all these questions, and she, at this point, still believes, but by the end of the episode, her belief is definitely become a lot more shaky, right? Definitely gets a lot more shaky. Yeah, and an interesting thing about the scene, right? Between, I'll just pull up this image. An interesting thing about the scene, one of the interrogation scenes between Dasha and Ya Wenji that I liked was that it is brought up that advanced cultures, usually primitive cultures don't survive when advanced cultures are introduced. Usually, historically, that has happened. So he presents that question to Ya Wenji. He presents that question to Ya Wenji. And Ya Wenji basically says that she believes that to build a new world, you have to tear down the old one. So essentially, her motivation is pretty spot on with the book motivation. Also in this scene, Dasha basically figures out that the Trisolarans and humanity and ETL must have a faster than light way of communicating. They must have a faster than light way of communicating. So he basically figures it out. He basically surmises that it doesn't make sense that they don't have a faster way of communicating. So just put that right there. Also in this episode, we see that Mike Evans is kind of like walking around his ship, and he's lying to everybody about the Lord, essentially. He's extremely worried that Santi is not talking to him. He's extremely worried that the Santi is not talking to him. We also see in this episode that Augie restarts the countdown, and it counts down. It doesn't show back up. The countdown doesn't show back up. And so they're wondering what happened to the countdown. Why is it not showing up? And they basically say it's because ETO has been abandoned by the Santi. The Trisolarans have pulled back because they've realized that humans are liars. They've realized that humans are liars and they can't deal with it. So they've basically pulled back and they are no longer protecting ETO. And this is where Augie's nanotech comes into play. And it essentially has the same function as it does in the book. The only difference is that it's way more brutal and way more dramatic and way more impactful, I feel like, in the TV show. Because like I said, there's families aboard, but that doesn't matter to Wade. The families aboard doesn't matter to Wade. And he even says it's a shame that their parents were traitors to humanity, because all Wade is concerned about is the survival of humanity. He's like, these people are traitors, and he saw them as traitors. And if this is the most urgent thing. This is the most important thing in the history of humanity, right? And you need someone like Wade that can do the dirty things, right? And I think a lot of the reason that people are like annoyed by Augie because she's so distraught by this is because you can see that Wade is like doing this for the good of everybody and that this is what we've got to do. She's there to be like, the moral reflection. Like she's there to like so that we still recognize the, like, the cost of human life, like the weight of human life. And I really cool. Someone says it wasn't impactful to Raj because Raj is Zhang High. Raj is Zhang High. That's a whole different thing. But yeah, absolutely. That's why Shangxin is the way she is. She's there to be that moral reflection and to be like the juxtaposition to Wade, who's very like, we got to do what we got to do. The scene was brutal. The scene was brutal. It was very well done. They didn't directly explain what the plan was up until this point. So I imagine if you didn't know what the plan was up until this point, like when you see like it starts slicing, it's like, oh crap. And it was definitely very well done. This was the scene where my jaw dropped and I was like, holy heck, they are going gruesome with it. It felt like a Game of Thrones, maybe like a Red Wedding type moment. And they've got this is just the first Red Wedding. This is just the first Red Wedding in this series. But yeah, very well done. And I also loved basically everything else that happened in this episode following this moment. This is when the episode gets so good in my opinion. So they recover data from the ship, and they basically get the recount. They basically go into it's a version of what happens in the book. They go into the game in the show, and then it's explained to them like what's really going on. And in the book, we do get a version of this as well. It's the book version. You read the book version. I'm just going to say this right now. Like if you have not read the books, definitely just, if you don't want to read the whole thing, like just go to the end of the book and like read this part where it's like the Trisolarian homeworld. It's so good. It's so good in the books. But I also loved this version of it. I understand why they shortened it. But oh my God, it's so good. And the sound design is so good. So basically, they start off by they mention the multi-dimensions. They mention that the universe is multi-dimensional. There's 10 dimensions of the universe. And so she's explaining what's going on. So she's like, it's so epic. The music is good. The sound design is good. The sound of the proton unfolding is so good. Please tell me you guys watched it on a good sound system. Please tell me you didn't watch this on your phone because you need a good sound. Just listen to it. It sounds so good. So basically she's like, we summon energies you cannot imagine and we focus them onto a single proton. And so this is just like in the book. So they unfold this proton into higher dimensions. And in the book, it covers their entire planet. And and it's so cool. I'll just like show you what it looks like. It's so epic in the show too. It covers their entire planet. It spreads out and covers their entire planet. And their whole planet is dark because of this. And then they etch the computer onto the unfolded proton. And it's so freaking epic. And actually something really cool that happens in the book, and there's a version of it that happens in the show, is with the eye. So the eye doesn't actually show up in the sky for everyone to see in the show. The eye is something that happens to the Trisolarian. I don't think I took a screenshot of it, but the eye is something that actually happens on the Trisolarian homeworld. Because if you remember Shang Jin's like little like tortilla bread thing, when she was talking about like how within these small spaces, like an entire universe could be contained. When she's talking about that, that's what she's referencing. The Trisolarians were messing around with these protons, trying to unfold it into higher dimensions, and they accidentally screwed around with this like sentient race of beings that lived inside of the proton in like a lower dimension. And so these beings manifest in 3 dimensions as this giant eye over the sky of Trisolaris. And this eye starts attacking Trisolaris because like they know that if Trisolarian succeeds in unfolding this proton and like etching this computer on it, then their like entire universe will be destroyed. So they're fighting against the Trisolarians. So just read that part in the book. It's so epic. It's so good. But I understand why they changed it a little bit. And I would have liked to have seen that a little bit. I'm not going to lie, I would have liked to have seen it, but I don't hate what they did in the show. And I loved, like I said, the sound design. I loved how they showed the Sophon unfolding. I love how they showed the creation of the Sophon and like how they etched the supercomputer on it and how like, and also if you notice, like the Sophon has the same voice as her because she is Sophon. So yeah, everything about it, I thought it was super cool. And then we see this Also, so we talk about quantum entanglement. This is in the books as well, how they created two SOFONs. When they created these supercomputers and they quantum entangled them, they entangled them at the quantum level. So this is just like in the book. So there's a pair on Trisolaris and there's a pair on Earth, and that's how this direct communication happens. That's how this direct communication happens. It's because of the SOFONs. And I'm just really happy that they're explaining this. I'm just really happy that they're explaining this. People saying that this is crapping on the adaptation and that they're not like staying true to the source material. Yeah, there's certain things that are changed and streamlined, but come on, guys. This is a good adaptation. Like, this is fun. This is good. And also, like, the sales for the Three Body Problem books are like through the roof. People are excited about this. People are excited to read the books. Like, this is great for the franchise and the fandom, even if it's not exactly like the books. Like I said, you can watch the Tencent version if you want something that's more in line with that first book. But like, this is a great start to the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, and I'm excited about this. All right. So yeah, just super epic the way they showed it. And then, okay, so, but there is a difference too. There is a difference. So in the show, the You Are Bugs thing, like it's on like every screen in the world. In the book, it's a little different. And I did pull a quote from the book because it's not on like all the screens. It's like just like on the eyes of the people at the command center. So I'll just pull it out, right? So this is from Three Body Problem. Everyone in the battle command center saw the message in their eyes, just like Wang Miao's countdown. The message flashed into existence for only 2 seconds and then disappeared, but everyone got it. It was only a single sentence. You are Bugs, right? So yeah, it's similar. I get why they did it the way they did it. They wanted to go for this huge dramatic moment. This is something that the entire world is experiencing. And I gotta admit, it looked super cool. Seeing the SOFON unfold and like kind of mirror the entire planet. Mirror the entire planet. So yeah. Someone says Wong, not Wang. I'm pretty sure the character's name is Wang. I'm pretty sure the character's name is Wang. Okay, anyway. Let us, okay, so yeah. So just the ending of episode 5. Episode 5 from beginning to end. Absolutely my favorite episode. It was crazy. Like, oh God, it was just so freaking cool. And I love how they stayed in line with all of the big concepts. I love how they stayed in line with all of the big concepts from the book. All right, so let's move on to episode 6. The Stars Are Destination. Now, I don't know who many people are aware of this, but The Stars Are Destination. This is the book by Alfred Bester, I believe his name is, right? And in this book, you have like this galactic universe. These humans have gone to the stars, and they have the ability to teleport, through what is called jaunting, right? And some of you might have seen my video on Stephen King's book, The Jaunt. He named, not his book, The Jaunt, his short story, The Jaunt. It's named The Jaunt because of this Alfred Bester story, The Stars Are Destination. So this is a very famous science fiction story that's referenced a lot. So in the beginning of this episode, we see that there is massive unrest. We're setting the stage for things like the Great Ravine. There's massive civil unrest. Everyone's like, there's, because aliens are coming, so it's crazy. We also see in this episode that Wenji basically admits that the Trisolarans are not going to help them. She realizes what is going on. They're not coming to save humanity anymore. So she admits that she thinks this. And then one of the biggest things that happens in this episode is Will, just like Tianming, buys a star in honor of Jin/Changxing. All right. And this is where we get to a lot of like the really close similarities. Like a lot of people that have only read the first book really didn't, they absolutely did not recognize Will as Tianming. And Tianming is one of the most important characters in the series, in the entire series. Like we could so much, we're just going to get into it. Right. So I have a slide here. All right. So a giant star map greeted Tianming, aka Will, as he entered the spacious office of the Stars Are Destination project. Silver lines connected the stars in constellations against a pitch black background. Tianming saw that the map was displayed on a high-definition screen. A computer nearby allowed for zooming and searching. The office was empty except for a receptionist. So just like in the book, he goes in, he's going to buy a star, and in honor of Shangxin, right? And the Stars Our Destination project is pretty much exactly what it is in the book. Pretty much what you see in the show is what you get in the book. We also get a scene that I really loved. And again, I have to mention this because I've been seeing like a lot of comments that have been kind of bothering me. I saw a lot of people like, why are they spending so much time on the relationship between Jin and Will? Like, who are these people? Like, a lot of these scenes are taken directly from the book. This scene is basically directly from the book with the paper boats, and there's even more relevance to it if you understand what happens later with Tian Ming's fairy tales, which they're definitely hinting at in the show. So I'm just going to read the excerpt from the book. While they talked, she tossed pebbles into the reservoir. Their conversation meandered over usual topics for classmates who were becoming acquainted for the first time, but Tianming could still recall every word. Later, Shangxin had made a little origami boat out of a sheet of paper and deposited it onto the water. A breeze carried the boat away slowly until it turned into a tiny dot in the distance. That most lovely day of his time in college held a golden glow in his mind. In reality, the weather that day hadn't been ideal. There was a drizzle, and the surface of the reservoir was filled with ripples, and the pebbles they tossed felt wet in the hand. But from that day on, Tianming fell in love with drizzly days, fell in love with the smell of damp ground and wet pebbles, and from time to time he made origami boats and placed them on his nightstand. So this is essential to the characters. Like I can't. The only solution in my mind as to why someone would be asking why this scene is here is if you have not read the book. Is if you have not read the book, right? So the scene is here for a reason, and it's a version of something that Lucius wrote, and it's a pretty accurate version. From what I'm seeing here, I feel like the show does a really good job of portraying the relationship between these two. Although there are, of course, differences, their essence is still there. And we're all set up, as I said, for future events. All set up for future events. Okay. Oh, okay. So major thing that we start to get into in this episode is the staircase project, right? So this, just like in the book, this is another thing that's very similar in the book. Okay, guys, I got to call you guys out a little bit. Not you guys, but some people. I've been seeing people be all like, "Oh, this show's doing like girl boss stuff. There's so much girl boss stuff," and I'm like, in reference to this scene in particular with Chung Jin, right? And this is from the book. This scene is from the book, and it's relatively close, right? So Shangxin definitely does come up with this idea, right? Then I'm just going to read the excerpt from the book, right? A few seemed to want to speak up, but finally decided to remain quiet. None of them thought their own ideas could compete with Shangxin's. Eventually, everyone's eyes focused on her again. But this time, the meaning was completely different. We'll meet twice more to brainstorm and see if we can come up with a few more options, but we might as well get started on the feasibility study for the en route propulsion. We'll need a code name. Since the probe's velocity will go up a level each time as the bomb explodes, it's a bit like climbing a flight of stairs, Vladimir said. I suggest we call it the Staircase Project. So a woman creates the project in the book. A woman who's very similar creates the project in the show. Okay, so let's move on from that. In this episode, it also becomes clear that Wade actually intends to send a human brain in the Staircase Project, right? So in the book, this is also what they do. And in the book, Wade, just like in the show, he really, really fights for the Staircase Project. He really fights for Shangxin's project, right? And I just have another excerpt from Wade, preaching for the project. The last session of the PDC marked the first time a resolution had been passed based on a proposal that wasn't even written down. Right. So that's how good Shang proposal is. They like immediately, like, this is our only option. And Shang got to witness the debating skills of Wade, usually a man of few words. He argued that if we assume the Trisolarans were capable of receiving a body in deep freeze, this section will also explain like some things I thought were a little bit nebulous in the show. He argued that if we assume the Trisolarans were capable of reviving a body in deep freeze, then it made sense to assume that they were also capable of reviving a bare brain in similar condition and conversing with it through an external interface. Surely such a task was trivial for a civilization capable of unfolding a proton into two dimensions and etching circuits all over the resulting surface. In some sense, a brain was no different from the whole person. It possessed the person's thoughts, personality, and memories, and most definitely possessed the person's capacity for stratagems. If successful, the brain would be a ticking time bomb in the heart of the enemy. Someone says, is Tatiana in the book? Tatiana is essentially the character Shan Yufei in the book, and she's also a wall breaker. Essentially, that's the adaptation. Back onto this. And like I said, guys, I will be answering your super chats later once we get to a stopping point. But for right now, we're just going to go through all this. We're getting close to the end, and it's pretty exciting. So yeah, the whole thing with the Staircase Project, very similar to the book. It's Chong Zin's project. Wade fights for it. Yeah, essentially, it's a spy. The brain is a spy, and they know that the Trisolarans won't be able to resist talking to this brain. And there's no guarantee that humanity will get the brain back. Obviously, there's no guarantee, but it's like in times of war, it's like when you want to send into a spy. You send in a spy. You send a spy into dangerous territory, and you don't know whether or not they're going to come back. So they had to do something. They did the Staircase Project because it was something. It was something, and everyone else had nothing. So yeah, that's the Staircase Project. All right. So that's the main gist of episode 6. Let's get into episode 7. So in episode 7, we learn that Tianming / Will has encountered the star. I mean, he has acquired the star DX3906. Another one of those things that's taken straight out of the book. They kept the name of the star. DX3906. Yeah, this what can I say? This is a major element of the book that he purchases this specific star. We also see cryosleep for the first time in this episode. We see like the monkey being put to cryosleep, and we see like how they're going to keep Tianming's brain preserved. And cryosleep is also a huge part of this show. I don't know if I grabbed a screenshot of the monkey scene, but you guys remember it if you've seen it. But cryosleep is a huge part of the book. Like, in fact, you couldn't even do the book without cryosleep. You couldn't even do the story without cryosleep. So yeah, cryosleep is a huge part of it. So it makes sense that they're introducing it here. Yeah. So the Wallfacer Project. So we got my man Thomas Wade. The Wallfacer Project is brought up for the first time in this episode as well. Let me just grab an image of Thomas Wade to put on screen. I didn't take enough screenshots of Thomas Wade. I apologize. Where is he? God, I definitely did not take enough screenshots of Thomas Wade. Is there? No, it's Mike Evans. Mike Evans sitting in a bunch of dark rooms. There we go. So the Wallfacer Project, right? So the Wallfacer Project is a huge thing. We see it first mentioned in this episode, and Thomas Wade basically comes up with it in the show. So yeah, the Wallfacer Project is in the book. It's a key part of the book. It's a central part of the book, and they're setting it up in this episode, and it basically comes to fruition in the next episode. And they're setting up huge things to come with the Wallfacer Project. But let's move on to something that I've been waiting to talk about. This the entire stream. I wanted to talk about this. I'm so excited about this. Because I figured this out. And I don't know, maybe other people figured this out too, but I figured this out and I feel smart. So I want to talk about this. So in this episode, it's also revealed to people that have read the books that Saul is Luoji, and Yao Wenji gives him a riddle. And we also see the ant, just like in the book. I'll just read this excerpt. Because the ant's important. The ant metaphor is important, actually. The brown ant had already forgotten its home. To the twilight earth and the stars that were just coming out, the span of time may have been negligible. But for the ant, it was eons. In days now forgotten, its world had been overturned. Soil had taken flight, leaving a broad and deep chasm. And then soil had come crashing down to fill it back in. So, right, this ant's home has been displaced by, someone being buried, right? So the ant is a metaphor, right? The ant is crawling on this gravestone in the book and in the show. And as you can see, the ant is crawling through like the little etchings on the gravestone. And the ant, though it's crawling through, it can't perceive the letters. It can't perceive the words because it is an ant like crawling on like this little two-dimensional space. So it can't see the bigger picture. And it's a metaphor for humanity. It's a huge metaphor for humanity. It can't comprehend beyond its own limited perspective. To the ant, these engravings are deep caverns that it will never be able to understand or comprehend. It won't even be able to recognize that they're words or letters. All right. But let's get into what Yawenji says. Let me see if I got the... Yeah, I got it. So Yawenji gives him an Einstein joke. And the joke itself is a red herring. People are getting caught up on the joke itself. It's not about the joke. It's about the fact that she's telling Luoji / Saul that he's smart and that he can figure it out. But think about Einstein. Think about what I'm saying to you and think about Einstein. Think about it. All right. And it's okay if you miss this because I missed this. Why Einstein? In the beginning of the show, in her daughter Vera's room, there is a bust of Einstein that Jin picks up. Right? We see it, and she puts it on that bookshelf by the shelf. At the end of the show, Yawenji picks up 2 books. She picks up 2 books, and I'm just going to put those on full screen for a second so you can see what books they are. Fermi Paradox, Cosmology and Life, and Game Theory. Right? She places those books right over beside the Einstein bust. She places it over right by the Einstein bust. So she's obviously intending on Saul to go there and find those books. And maybe she's left notes in those books, but the books themselves are highly important if you've read the books. Fermi Paradox, Cosmology and Life. These are the foundations for cosmic sociology. She's trying to get Saul to understand something fundamental about the universe. And this is in the book. So it's not so a lot of people were wondering, like, why is it the Einstein joke and why doesn't she say exactly what she says in the book? She says it in a different way. And if you're paying attention, then you'd catch this. You'd catch it if you were. I totally get why people didn't catch it. I watched the show twice, so I caught on to it. But yeah, that's what's going on here. She wants him to find those books. She wants him to read what's there. Maybe she's left notes in it that give him better hints. But yes, that's what happened, right? So yeah, this is why. Yeah. And so this explains thing. We'll get to the next episode just a little bit. So this is essentially the Einstein thing explained. So I felt really smart when I put that together and saw how that all worked together. So pretty similar to the ideas presented in the book. So also at the end of this episode, we see the last of Yawenji. She goes back to the Red Coast base and she is going to commit suicide. But the Trisolarians have already sent Tatiana to kill her, even though she was going to kill herself anyway. So in the book, I don't think Yawenji kills herself in the book. I think she just kind of goes to the top and she kind of dies because she's old, of natural causes. I don't remember there being a suicide in the book, if I'm being honest. So I don't think that happened. And definitely there was no sending an ETL member to kill her. So I get why they did this, but it's not exactly like the book. But she does die, and they do. It's the whole thing too about the sun setting on Yawenji and the sun setting on humanity. So it is in the book. There's a version of this in the book. There is a version of this in the book for sure. So that was that. She goes back to Radar Peak, and she dies, and that is the end of that whole thing. Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention. not because it's extremely important. Um, not because it's extremely important, but because I thought it was an interesting small thing that they included. Because there's a lot of small things that they included from the book that I wasn't expecting. And that's the Great Escape, right? So in the show, Clarence's son is working on this. It has this whole project that he's working on. It's like a Great Escape fund, and this is in the books. And this is another one of those things that a lot of people are going to look right over and not remember from the books. But yeah, in the book, it's not these two discussing it; it's two other people. But it's like the same. It was something that was created by Da Shi's son. And I'll just read the excerpt. The information I told you over the phone a few days ago is reliable. What's that? The escape fund. Lao Miao. How can you believe that? You don't seem like an easy mark, Yang Jinwen said disapprovingly. Sorry if I pronounced the Chinese names badly. No, Mao Fuquan said, lowering his voice and looking back and forth between the other two. The young guy's name is Shi Xiangming. I checked out his background through various channels. His father is Shi Kunyang. Da Shi. There we go. It's Da Shi. Works for the PDC security department. So there we go. So that is a part of the book that is like put in the show. It's reworked a little bit, and it's something that you might not notice if you haven't read the books recently, but there it is. It's right there. So that is something that's also from the book. So Da Shi's son is not an invented character that came out of nowhere. He's in the books. He's mentioned in the books. And yeah, essentially it's about escapism, right? People want to have a fund so that maybe in the future humans can escape Earth. So that's the idea. If you read the books, you know what happens with that, but that's the idea. Okay, so there was also a scene in this episode 7. There's also a scene in this episode 7. I don't know if I took a direct screenshot of that particular scene. But it's a scene that involves, this scene. Yeah, this scene here. I thought this is another one of those scenes where people have been going like, girl boss, why are they doing this girl boss thing? So Augie, she leaks all the company's tech data, and she makes it, open source. So she gives it to everyone, right? To me, this obviously seems like an extension of ideas in the book as well, right? After the news of the Tri-Solarans break, there's like this whole global debate on whether or not technological development should, be like, open source and available to everyone. And you have like the United States government and Western governments and all the governments of the world are like fighting against this. Like the major governments don't want technology to be like open source. So I thought like this scene was obviously just an expansion upon that idea. It's like the beginning of that idea that humanity needs to start working together, and we need to work together to get things done. So that's why she did it. It's not a random thing. It relates to what is happening in the books. It relates to the story. And you know what? She is a girl boss. So what? So Xia Wenji. What? I don't know. Like, I mean, it relates to the story. It makes sense. It fits. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't shit on anything. It's not. It works. It absolutely works. All right. So that was it for episode 7. Let's get to the last episode. Last episode is called Wall Faces. Oh, no, it's kind of not get to that yet. Last episode is called Wall Faces. Now, the wall facers are one of the most interesting concepts from the books. And if you watch my video on the wall facers, make sure you also watch the amendment to that video that's posted in the comment section, because there's actually a little bit of an error in that video that's amended in the comment section. If you click, there's another video and also in the description. So if you watch that video, definitely watch that amendment. So the wall facers are introduced in this last episode. And just like in the book, there's a lot of similarities from the book to this episode, I want to say, because we're going to get through them. Just like in the book, because of what Ya Wenji said to him, the Tri-Solarans want Saul dead. They want him dead. Whatever Ya Wenji told him, they've recognized that this is dangerous information. And they do not want humanity. They don't want humanity to have this information. And they want him dead because he's the only person on Earth that knows He's the only, not, he doesn't know yet. He will know eventually, but he's the only person. He's one of the only people that has the potential of knowing because of what the clue Yao Wenji left for him. So the Trisolarans want him dead, and they're actively trying to kill him. And yeah, the assassinations, it's the same, guys. It's another one of those things where it's very close, down to like the girl. So like in this scene, we see that in the book, Luoji is like in a hotel with this woman whose name he doesn't really remember, and she gets hit by a car and killed, just like in the show. It's basically the same, and the same way that Saul falls out of the way and he gets saved by the fall, and then she gets hit. It happens in the book just like that. And I'll just read this excerpt for you guys. It's from The Dark Forest. That fall saved his life. Meanwhile, the following was taking place on the street in front of them. 2 cars collided head-on, but before the noise of the impact had subsided, Apollo swerved to avoid the crash and came hurtling towards where the 2 of them were standing. Luoji's fall turned into a successful dodge. Only the front bumper of the Polo brushed his feet, the one that was still elevated, nudging his body into a 90-degree turn on the ground so that he faced the back of the car. He didn't hear the heavy thud of the other impact, but then he saw the woman's body soar over the top of the car and fall behind it on the road like a boneless rag doll. As it tumbled, the trail of blood it left behind on the ground seemed like it ought to mean something. As he stared at the bloody symbol, Luoji finally remembered her name. Right? Yeah, it's basically snatched right out of the book. The whole scene is snatched right out of the book, down to him like not remembering her name, right? And the Trisolarans want him dead. All right, so and it's because of what Yao Wenji said. So yeah. So we see later in the episode that he is chosen to be a wall facer, and like in the book, he continuously rejects or attempts to reject being a wall facer. But you can't really reject the role of wall facer. It's kind of a trap, because like you saying you reject the role could just be a part of your plan as a wall facer. So you're just going to be a wall facer forever. Just going to be a wall facer forever. So we can't really reject the role. And it is basically the same in the book. And I've got some quotes. Okay, so here we go. "I refuse," he said firmly, without even thinking over what Sei had just said. "You may." So just like in the show, they're just like, "You may." The swiftness of this reply, right on the heels of his refusal, left him at a loss for a moment. After a few seconds of silence, he said, "I reject the position of wall facer. I reject all the powers granted it. I will not undertake any responsibility you force upon me." And then they're just like in the show, they're like, "You may." The simple immediate reply to his statement, light as a dragonfly touching on the water, shut down his brain's ability to think and made his mind totally blank. "So am I free to leave?" was all he could ask. And then they're just like, "You may, Dr. Luo. You are free to do anything." So very, very in line with what happens in the show. Yeah, it's almost exactly like the book. Like he walks out and immediately gets shot. He suffers the exact same injuries, like the broken rib and the internal bleeding. Just like in the book, the assassin is detained. Just like in the book, he wants to see him. Just like in the book, the guy apologizes for shooting him and not killing him. It's actually insanely close to the book. It's actually insanely close to the events of the novel, actually. And it's funny. Some of the dialogue is like even almost exactly the same. It's like very, very close. I think I got some more. Yeah. "But I'm not a wall facer anymore," Luoji shouted. Then he asked, "Has the media announced the wall facer project to the entire and then to the entire world? And my refusing to be a wall facer, it's in there too, of course." "What did it say?" "It was quite simple. After the conclusion of the UN special session, Luoji declared his refusal of the wall facer position and mission." Yeah, so all that with Luoji and Saul, always very close. Anyone saying that they changed it a bunch, they didn't really change it. they changed the wall facers. They changed who the wall facers were, which was to be expected because they changed everybody else. I don't know how we get to episode 8 and then expect the wall facers also to be the same. And then I understand, and then they obviously removed one of them. There's obviously 3 instead of there being 4. But this is another thing that's obviously done for streamlining purposes. You've already got a lot of characters, so I think 3 is probably enough for the show. 3 is probably enough for the show. To be honest, it's not a major change. It's not a major change. Right? Like going through all of this and seeing all of the actual differences and going, I hope you guys have been enjoying this video too. Like, please hit the like button if you've been enjoying it. But going through all of this, like all of these scenes by scene, there's the major differences. That's what I'm not seeing. Like the major narrative differences is what I'm not seeing. So I don't understand how this is the idea that's prevalent among so many like fans of the book, that it's so majorly different when it's not. So moving on to another thing that's pretty similar. We see in this episode that oh, I think I forgot to mention that in the last episode, Will volunteers to join the Staircase Project, just like the book, right? So like just like Tianming in the book, he joins the Staircase Project and he decides to be the brain, and that goes to intercept and spy on the Trisolarans, right? And we see in this particular episode, episode 8, the seeds conversation, right? It's another one of those moments that's taken directly from the books. It's another one of those like things that builds Tianming's relationship with Changxin and builds Will's relationship with Jin. And that's like the seeds, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of a beautiful moment, right? And just like in the book, like Wade like initially rejects it, but then he eventually like caves and lets her put the seeds in. So I'll just read this. It's like the same dialogue. I request that these seeds be included in the staircase capsule. Wade opened the envelope and emptied its contents onto the desk. More than a dozen small packets. He ticked through them with interest. Wheat, corn, potatoes, and these are some vegetables, right? Is it chili pepper? This is just like in the show. And then Changxin nodded. It's one of his favorites. Wade put all the packets back into the envelope and pushed it across the desk. No. Why? These weigh only 18 grams in total, which is exactly like in the show. And then he says, we must make every effort to remove even 1.8 grams of excess mass. So like it's like the same scene. So yeah, the seeds are in there with Will / Tianming. All right, so yeah, the failure of the Staircase Project obviously happens, but it's not over. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I mean, there's a cryonically frozen human brain drifting through space, so that has to go somewhere. Yeah, the Staircase Project is coming up again. Who knows how far in the future it's coming up again, but it's coming up again, guys. This isn't the last of the Staircase Project. So yeah, the Staircase Project fails, and it's kind of a sad moment, but yeah. And I will say that what was interesting too, like I feel like this show kind of reminded me of the way Game of Thrones was structured in the really good seasons, right? Where it was like episode 8 or 9 would be like the really crazy episodes, and then like the last episode would be kind of winding down, and that's what this episode kind of reminded me of. And let's talk about the ending scene in the show. The ending scene in the show with the bugs is also super close to a scene at the end of Three Body Problem, the book Three Body Problem, right? And so I think this is my last slide. Yeah, so the bug scene, it's very close to what we see in the books as well. Look at them, the bugs. Humans have used everything in their power to extinguish them, every kind of poison, aerial sprays, introducing and cultivating their natural predators, searching for and destroying their eggs, using genetic modification to sterilize them, burning with fire, drowning with water. Every family has bug spray. Every desk has a fly swatter under it. This long war has been going on for the entire history of human civilization, but the outcome is still in doubt. The bugs have not been eliminated. They still proudly live between the heavens and the earth, and their numbers have not diminished from the time before the appearance of humans. The Trisolarans who deemed the humans bugs seem to have forgotten that fact. Bugs have never been truly defeated. Right? So obviously the creators of the show saw this moment as like a yeah moment. And so I get why they put it right at the end. Yeah, and that's right at the end. That's right at the end. All right, so that's episode 8. That was episode 8. So that was all of the episodes. We went through all the characters, we went through all the episodes, we went through a bunch of like the direct influences from the book, the direct similarities and the stuff they took directly from the books. In my opinion, this is a good adaptation. It's a different adaptation. It's not the book, obviously. If you want to read the book, you can read the book. If you want a closer adaptation to the book, you can watch the Tencent Three-Body Problem. And from what I hear, they're also going to do the Tencent Dark Forest. Apparently, that was planned as well. So we've got the Chinese adaptation. We've got the Tencent Chinese adaptation. We've got the Netflix adaptation. We've got the books. Like, this is a great time for the franchise. It's a great time to be in the fandom. We can enjoy all of these things. We can enjoy the books, we can enjoy both shows, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be like this one sucks and that one sucks. I don't want the Three-Body Problem like fandom to be one of those fandoms that, you know, tears itself apart by like the nitpicking like little things in adaptations, when the truth is that every adaptation ever made has been changed somewhat from the original source material. And many of these adaptations have gone on to be beloved in the eyes of society and in the eyes of everyone. I mentioned The Lord of the Rings in my review because this is something, it's a book series that's very different from the books, but like the movies are iconic because they maintain the essence and they give us something new, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. And like I said, this show, you know, like I don't know if I'm like, I love this show, but I definitely really, 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 really like the show. And I'm excited for season 2. Yeah, what can I say? I'm excited about it. I'm very excited about it. So now that we've gone through all of that, I'm going to get to the super chats. We haven't taken super chats this entire time. So let's get to the super chats. All right. So George Lucas. Oh, what's up, George Lucas? How's it going? George Lucas says, thank you. Thank you for your super chat, George Lucas. Holy Freak 86 says, I think Raj will be the one. Oh, okay. So I don't want to read that one out loud because I don't want to give away too many spoilers. But thank you, Holy Freak 86. They say, love the channel. Greetings from Buenos Aires. Thank you so much for your super chat. DK says, love the channel. So glad I can finally catch a live stream. So thankful for your videos showing me this book series now. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks everyone that's joining me here watching. Please hit the like button if you've been enjoying the live stream. Thank you, Adam Eve, for becoming a member. Thank you, Wolf93. Any chance of season 2 happening? I got super hooked. Oh, it seems like season 2 is definitely happening. And see, the thing is, I don't think Netflix would give a deal to someone like David and Dan without the assurance of multiple seasons, right? These are the guys that are known for Game of Thrones. And if you're giving them a show, you're probably signing a contract for like 2 or 3 seasons at the very least. So it would be very shocking if there wasn't another season coming. Thank you, Eric S., for your super chat. And you're the best, too. Thank you, Simon Gonzalez, for your super chat. We are bugs. Greeting from Uruguay. Thank you. Thank you, Eric O. Love your work, bud. Keep going forever. Thank you, Just Let, for becoming a member. Thank you, Sebastian. Oh, you gifted memberships. Thank you so much. That's freaking awesome. Thank you so much, Sebastian. Zachary, thank you for your super chat. Hey, brother, I'm new here, really enjoying your stuff on the Three-Body Problem. Keep it up. Your work is awesome. Thanks for joining. Thanks for becoming a member. Our Buckman, Carl Hanna says, I love your analysis videos. Fantastic channel. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the kind words. Matthew Ross, thank you for the velvet voice and deep dives on really great sci-fis and summaries. Thank you for watching. Thank you for gifting a sub, Archer. Thank you for your, Disco Devil says, thank you for your work and all you do. Simply amazing work. Can't wait to see you do more. Thank you so much, Disco. Thanks, Eric B, for your super chat. Thanks, Jamie Sefton. The show was faithful in, I can't talk anymore. The show was faithful enough and had moments that made me grin ear to ear, but I had issues with each member of the five. They changed the bland book characters into cheap TV characters, in my opinion. Well, that's an opinion. And we can all have opinions, and that's great. We can all be friends and still have different opinions about things, and that's great. But thank you for your super chat. And thank you for your super chat, Cyanaptic. Jamie Sefton, thank you for your super chat. Also my fave sci-fi book because of you. Thank you so much. Silver Scale says, my friend wondered how come the Santi don't understand deception when they clean up after murders, which are based on deception and sneaking. So my good point. Well, I mean, it's not. I think they're having trouble understanding. Because it's like the Sophons just got here not too long ago. I think the show says months. And it's pretty clear in the book that the Sophons haven't been here for that long based off of Mike Evans' conversation. So they've been witnessing for a long time, and they've been trying to make sense of certain things while not fully understanding. But once they become aware of things, they completely stop it. Once they become aware of things, they completely stop it. All right. Andre Malcolm says, this is a great scene. What Wade did was right. No quarter to Traders of Earth. He had to do it. He had to do it to him. Duck 20 says, I think the Netflix show was better, to be honest. Well, that's an opinion. I personally definitely enjoy the books more because I'm a hard science fiction fan. So of course the book is always going to be like, that's my stuff. But I really, really like the show also. Bill Paulson, thanks for becoming a member. DK says, do you think they will include a lot of the material in the later books, specifically the implications of the pond? Totally get. No spoilers. I think they will. DK. I think they're setting up a lot of the big stuff from the books. Absolutely. A lot of it is to come for sure. Admiral's Fleet says, really love your content. Anytime I see a Quinn's Ideas videos, I know I'm in for a treat regardless of the content. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for your super chat, Jamie Erman. Jasoni7 says, just wanted to say hello and that I liked your videos. And I am mostly in for your Dune book series and movies, but I also like your content in general. Thank you. Thank you for watching my Dune videos and watching any of my content. Greg Smith says, great job on this deep dive. I was pleasantly surprised to see them incorporate the human computer. The nerd in me wanted more of the details. Like the book had, of course. Yeah, of course. We're nerds, so I totally get like the impulse to be like, oh, they left this side of the book. They left this side of the book. And I get that too. But like we gotta, with an adaptation, like I'm happy that this adaptation, is maintaining a lot of the ideas of the book and keeping a lot of things in place. It's keeping the major things in place. And we've got a lot of room for expansion in season 2 as well. We've got a lot of room for expansion in season 2. Okay. House of Your Music says, why do you think the Trisolarans want Saul dead if the only information at the cemetery was a pointer to where the books were? Thanks. Well, because I think they were watching Yawinji and they realized what she was doing. They realized what it was in reference to. I think they get what it's in reference to. They saw the books and they realized, oh, she's telling him about cosmic sociology. I think that was why. Thank you, Dewfall56. Thank you, Tofu. And Tofu, thank you for your other super chat. The greatest flaw of the Netflix adaptation is the putting every character into a social circle, which makes the whole series nothing like an epic. I get what you mean, but I also kind of appreciate it that they did that because I think it just adds more connective tissue and like helps the average Western audience keep everything together and like if you make the connections between the characters. I think it works for a TV show. And that maybe with every adaptation, like I was saying, like you always lose something in adaptation. There's something always lost in adaptation every time. Someone says you should check out David Brin's Uplift trilogy. Interesting galactic society it sets up. Someone says they skipped cosmic sociology. Well, not exactly, Wyatt Lennon, because we talked about that earlier in the stream. Like maybe rewind because we went through a whole thing. We have a bunch of slides. I'm very excited. I feel like this is one of my best streams. Maybe I'm pretty proud of the stream. But anyway, yeah, we talked a little bit about like the hints at cosmic sociology. So it wasn't exactly skipped. It was just subtly hinted on. Another one from DK says, my fiance wanted to ask, how would the first Santi hide the fact that they heard from Earth from the others if they did not have deception? Well, he doesn't. That's the thing. He doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. And we do learn that in the book. We see from that character. That's what I'm saying. You've got to read. I would say if you have not read the book, even if you don't want to read the whole thing, go read that ending section with the Trisolarans because it is so cool. You learn so much. You learn so much about them and the way they are. It's really, really cool. But basically, the simple answer is he doesn't keep it from them. He doesn't. And yeah, he meets his fate. uh, Someone says the Trisolarans warned us. Did others deceive us? No, no, it wasn't. I think your question is probably related to what someone just said earlier. It wasn't the Trisolarans as a whole. It was one member of the Trisolarans. Okay, so someone says, been a follower since Ida's Vice and Fire. Do you ever think you would review Dungeon Crawler? Carl, I've never read it, but potentially. Never know what's possible in this life. Okay, any thoughts on why the Netflix show wasn't super well received by the Chinese audiences and book fans? Well, I think that book fans have high expectations from the books, and nothing kind of beats your imagination when it comes to the books. But like I said, I'm a huge book fan, and I just recognize that the changes in adaptation are necessary. So I think a lot of people just wanted more specific things from the book to be present, and I think a lot of people. I'm not saying this is everyone or even like most people at all. But I do think that there's a certain degree of like a little bit of toxicity that's going on, where there's like a little bit of gatekeeping, where people are like, I don't want other people to be like thinking they know about the thing that I'm super into. So I definitely see that a little bit. So I see some people don't want it to go mainstream, and I get it also because when things go mainstream, sometimes they get bad. You know what I mean? But I don't think that this is a horrible adaptation. And as well as Chinese audiences, well, this is a adaptation that's made for Western audiences, and this adaptation shows scenes from the book that are censored in the Chinese adaptation. So there's a lot of things in this show that don't sit well with Chinese audiences. Like the stuff about the Cultural Revolution. So that is one major thing. And I think that's probably the gist of what's going on. But I'm not inside of other people's minds, so I don't really know. But that's just what I've seen. And lastly, I think there is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction sometimes. There's kind of a reactionary reaction sometimes to people when I'm seeing the term first forced diversity a lot. And to me, from what I can tell, whenever people are saying forced diversity, they just mean diversity. I mean, diversity isn't forced. People just kind of exist. So I mean, I think it's some of that stuff, and then I feel like that's probably like the smallest amount, right? That's probably like the smallest vocal minority. But like really, it's because it's like the book fans that are like they just have expectations from the book and they want it to be adapted, and they're not. Everyone has their right to not like be into something or not like it as much. And then the other side of it is, I think, because of the Cultural Revolution stuff. So that's essentially what I see. Okay, so what's next? Got some more super chats. Jamie Sefton says Liam Cunningham and Wenji actresses were both great, and that Wenji actress is from Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. So I appreciated the Star Trek. I always love it when my Star Trek actors get screen time. I always love that. Someone says Cherry says my Three Body Problem Machinima series is also awesome. Well, that's great. That's great. House of Music says easier to take the books than assassinate. Not sure what you're asking. Not sure. I'm going to be honest, House of Music. I'm not sure what you're asking. Paul says, you got me into the books. Thank you, Quinn. I love falling asleep to the lore videos on Three Body Problem, though it's hard to get to sleep when everything is so interesting. Thanks so much, Paul. And Emperor Potato says it's because they turned the Chinese dude into a stereotype of a sassy black dude. You see, that's when you start to lose me, Emperor Potato, because it's like we knew we have the Tencent adaptation for a reason, and then we have the Western adaptation for a reason. Like most of the characters in the book are Chinese. I don't get the problem. I don't get the problem. Yeah. That's where you start to lose me a little bit. I really don't get the problem when we're adapting and we're creating new characters for a different audience. And also I don't think there's anything stereotypical. I don't think there's anything really that stereotypical about the characters either. So kind of lose me with that one. Kind of lose me with that one a little bit. uh, okay. But yeah, so I think we've gone for about 2 hours. We've gone for about 2 hours. So if you guys, I'm looking at the chat now. Um, if you want to like get if you want anything else you guys want to talk about before we go, we've been going for 2 hours. I think it's been a good stream. Have you guys enjoyed the stream? Have you enjoyed the stream? Have I done a good job breaking it down? Let me know. Please hit the like button if you've been enjoying things. So because that really helps out with the algorithm and things like that. Please do so. And yeah, what did you think of the show? Everyone in the chat, give your rating if you've seen it. 1 to 10. Throw your rating out there. For me, I'm giving the show as a whole. I'm gonna have to go like a solid, like I'm gonna have to give it like a 7.8. 7.8 for me, because there were some moments where I was like, I want that from the books. I definitely want that. But I feel like it's a 7.8. Maybe I could round it up to a solid 8. So we got pretty high ratings. We got some 7s, some 8s. Yeah, I'm thinking around an 8 for the first season, and then maybe like a 9.5 for like episode 5. Right, episode 5 was great to me. I'm thinking the season gets an 8. As a television show, right? As a television show, because we got to realize too. It's an adaptation. It's an adaptation. Yeah. Yeah, so I'd say this is a pretty good rating. We're getting some 6s, a few 6s, some 7.5, a lot of 9s, a lot of 8s. Yeah, definitely Wyatt. Episode 5 was crazy. Episode 5 was like, oh, it's getting going, guys. It's getting going. Yeah, I agree. Aha. Aha, ha, ha. Can't be a 10. Almost nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. So I take it that you guys I think general audiences enjoyed it, and I did watch like the first episode with my brother-in-law, with my brother-in-laws, and they seem to enjoy it as well. They seem to be following it. Like a lot of the ideas in the book it's a lot of crazy ideas that can go over a lot of people's heads. So I think the show did a good job of presenting those ideas to people. I think they did a good job. Yeah, the ship scene was crazy. The ship scene was crazy. Someone says, seems like people who didn't read the books really like it. I have noticed that as well. That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying this whole time. As a television show, this really works. And I feel like we're pretty lucky that it basically keeps a lot of the ideas from the book. It keeps a lot of the ideas. To say this is crapping all over it, to say that this is a disgrace is not accurate, as we've gone over the course of this live stream. So yeah, we got one more super chat because I was just about to get out of here. Del Walker says, I recommend the novels to friends years ago. Most lost patience with it. Glad the show added more human interaction, which improved the slowness for impatient casuals. Dark Forest will be hype, though. And I agree. So yeah, definitely check out this book series. Check out Luscious book series. Absolutely fantastic. If you have not read the books and you've seen the show, totally. If you're one of those people that just read the first book and you thought this season was just going to be the first book, no, you need these other ones. You need these other ones. This is actually the spinoff, Redemption of Time, right? And I would say about the first half of this one is pretty good. The first half of it is pretty good. The second half isn't that great. The spinoff is written by a different author, so it's not Lucian. But these first 3, this is a science fiction masterpiece right here. And I think we're pretty lucky that we have a mainstream adaptation that has started off as well as this one has, because we could have gotten we could have gotten it. We could have been a lot worse, guys, and I'm pretty excited. So thanks everyone for watching. Please hit the like button. Please comment if you're watching the rerun of this. All of it helps out. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out, guys.